an 8-year military veteran. I'm a college student. I'm a black woman. And I believe that white privilege fucking exists.
You served in the military. You've made good choices.
Stop right there. Let's pay attention to the rhetorical strategies and the fucking backflips that are about to take place. Because people like Charlie Kirk and someone else who regrettably pops up in this video often do these rhetorical tricks in order to confuse people and trip them up when talking about the topic of white privilege. So let's get into it.
You've made good choices. You're getting rewarded for them. You're going to live in the American middle class. What privilege do I have that you don't have that is based on skin color, not on wealth or socioeconomic status? Name one thing that you can't do that I can do.
Instance of bullshit number one. We begin with Charlie asking her to name one privilege that he has that she doesn't, that isn't based off of wealth or socioeconomic status, as if the topic of white privilege that she said and began this discussion with doesn't have anything to do with wealth or socioeconomic status. As if we don't live in a country where the outcome that would happen as a result of the legislative policies that were pursued by governments in the past literally did not directly contribute to people's wealth and socioeconomic status. As in kindergarten words, when you make people slave and can't make money, they will have no fucking money. One of the many justifications they use for the institution of slavery and why it was legal and okay is because black people, the racial category that they came up with, were not human. So you couldn't enslave humans, but you can enslave black people if they're not human. That also led to a cascade of negative stereotypes that we're still living with today. Also, when you free people and then make it so that they don't have anything to build with or can't work wherever they want to because you know they're black people and inferior, you greatly hamper their earning potential. There are a good 99 other list of things that get affected by this one thing alone that all contribute to socioeconomic status and directly to wealth. So painting someone into a corner where they have to tell you about white privilege without talking about what impact race has had on socioeconomic status or wealth is like asking me to teach you math without numbers and then looking at me crazy when I fumble. The three are combined. You cannot separate them. That's how we start. Then Charlie says,
name one thing that you can't do that I can do.
So now we have to talk about the topic of white privilege that affects entire demographics of people only on an individualized basis. If you can't name something that I can go down the street right now and do, and you can't, well, looks like the whole concept gets thrown out the window. It's a catch-22 because if I say, I can't go down the street and be overly aggressive with a police officer and expect to live, they can immediately go, well, that's hyperbolic because not every black person who's aggressive with a cop dies. There are plenty of white people who've been killed by police for being aggressive with police. And who are you talking about? George Floyd, who actually died of fentanyl? That's how they bury you before you even get the chance to say anything. But let's hear the response.
I don't know. I can't make a whole fucking dollar.
What? You can't? Why?
Oh my god.
That was all of our reaction when you popped on the screen, Candace. Let's see what the response from her is.
There's so many different ways they sell you oppression, and she has purchased all of them today. So right now we are on sexism, right? So she's saying that I can't make a full dollar. Yes, you can.
What frustrates me?
Hey, racism affects how much money black people can make. No. Cool, dude. Anyway, the data says black workers still earn less than their white counterparts. Based on data collected from the National Women's Law Center, black women who worked full-time year-round low-wage occupations were typically paid about $21,700, which is $14,300 less compared to white non-Hispanic men in these occupations. Charlie Kirk is a white non-Hispanic man. In high-wage occupations like lawyers or engineers, black women were paid $40,000 less compared to non-Hispanic white men for the same job. Charlie Kirk is a non-Hispanic white man. Updated numbers from them show that black women working full-time year-round typically make around 67 cents for every dollar that a non-Hispanic white man makes. That is what Charlie Kirk is. Annually, this translates to a median gap of $22,692. Black women make up about 10% of the low-wage workforce jobs, despite making up about 6.2% of the overall workforce. Their representation in high-wage jobs is about less than half of their representation in the overall workforce. Different source, Institute of Women's Policy and Research, have the gap around 79.5% of what white non-Hispanic men make, which Charlie Kirk is. And you can look for as many sources as you want on this topic, and they're going to say roughly the same thing. So when she said, I can't make a whole fucking dollar to a non-Hispanic white man, Charlie Kirk, she was factually correct. But this was the reaction. Charlie then goes on to say this.
What frustrates me is you served our country, which deserves to be applauded. And you have lived a life of a victor, and you have the gumption to tell me you're a victim without evidence.
When the person sitting next to you just told that woman that her claim that is factually backed up with evidence isn't true and that she's actually just a victor, without evidence. You don't even want to have the conversation about deep-rooted racism within the military, with stories upon stories of black women and black people in general facing racial discrimination. You can read this if you would like to. Please read this as well. And if we were to analyze it, we see racial bias in officer promotions, administering military justice, and access to fucking VA benefits. And despite all of that, you're talking to a black woman who was in the military's face saying, oh, everything's all hunky-dory. Oh, and speaking of the person sitting next to you, if you want a perfect example of what white privilege is, fresh out of high school, what was Charlie doing? He gave a speech at Benedictine University and then got approached by a millionaire who decided you can't go to college and then finance his entire political career. And within the next 3 years ends up on the Washington Times, Fox News, CNBC, getting millions of dollars in donations from fossil fuel billionaires who happen to have direct ties to the person who financed this man's entire political career. Keep in mind, when I say finance his entire career, I mean Turning Point USA, the entire organization, was founded by him and that person at age 18 because he met him one time and he thought he was good. It has been, what, 12 years since it was founded now, and he now has generational wealth. You know what Candace Owens was doing fresh out of high school? Winning a lawsuit against her high school for failing to protect her from racial threats and slurs that were getting thrown at her by white classmates. She then had to run up incredible numbers on Facebook for years upon years before getting the opportunity to found Blexit in 2018 with Brandon Tatum. I'm not giving Candace Owens props, but at 18, Charlie, the white man, had his entire career paid for, and Candace Owens actually had to work and do something before she had enough to do her own thing. And she's still an employee under the Daily Wire. This picture, in and of itself, is what we mean when we say white privilege. And both of you are arguing against it, not even fucking realizing the irony. White people have not had to have their rights affirmed, debated, fought a war that almost tore the entire country apart over, reaffirmed, passed with amendments, still subjugated, leading movements upon movements for 100 years, then enshrined in the law eventually, only to continue being skirted and having to continue debate what the fuck's going on every single day. A complex set of multiple factors have led to white people having the momentum of history on their side. That is what white privilege is. And having to watch YouTube Dunning-Kruger yourselves over and over again on this topic has left me looking like this more times than you could imagine. Good day.